the history of soccer, called football in most of the world. When Minnesotans think of football, we picture the Minnesota Vikings lined up to take on the Green Bay Packers. But in most of the world, this is football. And in the United States, we call this kind of football soccer. Even though we call it soccer, we understand the importance of the name football. Our Minnesota professional soccer team is called the Minnesota United Football Club. Soccer is the most popular sport in the world. Look at this map. All of the green is where soccer dominates. Now, the United States is in blue. In our country, more people watch and play football than any other sport. And I'm not talking about soccer football, I'm talking about American football. Let's go way back to where this game started. The historical evidence suggests that 2 to 3,000 years ago, the sport of soccer was played all over the world, but it was played in many different ways. The ball that was used around the world to play soccer games varies greatly. In ancient civilizations, some countries used a rock. Some people, like the Aztecs and the Maya, used a human skull. Scientists have proven that the Aztecs and the Mayans used a severed head for their soccer games. Balls like this one were found in Egypt in tombs. It looks like it's just a piece of linen or piece of cloth with a rope tied around it. This is the kind of ball they used to play their soccer games. This guy is Mr. Charles Goodyear. You may have heard of his last name from these commercials. The Goodyear Tire. Yep, he started that company back in the 1800s. He decided to make a soccer ball out of rubber. This is the first soccer ball he ever made. The problem with rubber soccer balls back then is they were really heavy. Around the same time Charles Goodyear was making his rubber balls, this guy named Richard Linden started making balls out of leather. He started making balls out of leather because his wife died from blowing up soccer balls made from pig bladder. Yep, it turns out if the pig has a disease and you try to blow up their bladder, you can get sick too. Soccer balls made out of a pig bladder were used for a long time, but they weren't very durable. So Richard Linden decided to use a leather cover around the bladder. He was also the first inventor of the ball pump. Over the next 60 years, leather soccer balls continued to see improvements year after year. But there were problems with leather soccer balls too. Many times the leather would absorb water and the soccer ball would become really heavy. This soccer ball is the last leather soccer ball to ever be used in World Cup competition. 4 years later, at the World Cup in Mexico, they moved on to this ball. This ball is completely synthetic, which means there's no natural materials. Even since then, soccer balls have continued to improve. This soccer ball is the latest soccer ball used in the FIFA World Cup 2018. What is the World Cup? The FIFA World Cup is the world's biggest, best, and most prestigious soccer tournament. Every 4 years, the host country invites other countries from all over the world to compete in this tournament. Now, the country that wins has the bragging rights for the best soccer team in the whole world for the next 4 years. Here's video from the 1930 World Cup final. This was the very first World Cup ever. There was controversy that surrounded the game because each team wanted to use the ball from their home country. It was finally decided by FIFA that each team would get to use their ball for half of the game. Argentina wasn't happy because they were winning the game until halftime. Then, when Uruguay started to play with their ball, they scored 3 goals to take the lead and win the World Cup. Here are some highlights from the 90-year history of World Cup soccer. It's fun to watch how the technology changes in these clips. The video goes from blurry black and white to crystal clear color.
Lucas.
Ouais, c'est bien ça, c'est bien ça. C'est
Bon
bien
ballon
ça.
dans l'axe, Kylian Mbappé face à Vida.
Oh,
Kylian Mbappé! Ça fait 3 buts d'avance pour les Bleus! Est-ce que c'est terminé? Sans doute pas! Mais elle n'a jamais été aussi proche! Cette deuxième étoile!
Those were some great highlights from the Men's World Cup dating back to 1930. On the women's side, they didn't have an official World Cup until 1991, which means they've only had 8 tournaments. The good news is the women's national team has won the World Cup 4 times. So the United States has pretty much dominated the Women's World Cup. Yes! Now let's see those women in action. I hope you enjoyed learning about the history of soccer.